Hi guys, very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the video number 297, and in this video we are going to prepare a Excel. In Excel there is a summary report which we want to prepare, a mini dashboard kind of a stuff you can call it, and this we are going to do using the loops and using the pivots. So if you don't have any information about the pivots and the loops, please go ahead and watch my first of all the playlist, and you need to go to the playlist on my channel, and we have here the VBA introduction series. If you want to have a look on the introduction series, if you're a beginner, please go ahead and first watch this series. And similarly, I have created a the series on the Excel VBA charts and pivots and Excel VBA loops, right? So first of all, you need to actually understand those things, because I'm not going to talk about all these things in this video, right? This is going to be a very advanced video, so we will go ahead and deal with this situation. So I received actually an email from Santosh, and this is his Excel file which he forwarded me. So he has employee names rate 1, rate 2, rate 3, rate 4, rate 5, and guys, here he has actually written that the output should be like this, and it would be great if we can delete the multiple headers. So this is what actually he wants to do. He wants to have the employee name and the rate 1, and then employee name rate 2, and then employee name rate 3, and then rate 4, rate 5, and so on, right? So this is how he wants to do it. So when you said actually, Santosh, that you want to remove the duplicate, so I thought of that, why not to create the pivot, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to create 5 pivots. In the first pivot we will only include these two. In the second pivot we are going to include the employee name and the rate 2. In the third we are going to include the employee name and the rate 3, and then we are going to compile it using the loops, right? So this is what exactly I want to do here. So we'll start with the recording. I can create the pivot right away, but I'm going to tell you that when you're going to make the pivots, basically you can take the help of this macro editor. So click on the record macro, guys, and let me hit on the macro 1. So the macro is ready. Now what you want to do is I'm going to simply select this, and I'll go in the insert in the pivot table. We click on the pivot table, and this is the table, but by default it is selected. New worksheet is there, so we will create the pivot on the new worksheet. I created the new pivot, and then I'm going to drag this, and I'm going to put the rate 1 here. Then I come here on this cell, and I'm going to use the Control Shift right arrow and Control Shift down arrow. We copy the data, guys, and I come back to my original sheet here, and then let's say I go to the last cell of this Excel using the control down, and I'm going to use the control up arrow. I'm going to use the control up arrow, and then I move one cell down, and here I'm going to paste the value. Okay, so I'm generating all the code for you in the macro editor. This is going to speed up the things, and then once you have the format, that's it. So these all the steps we have recorded, and now what we want to do is I want to quickly stop the recording, right? And we can delete this. Now we can create the header here for the first the summary, because we know that it is always going to be the rate 1, and so I'm gonna align them everything on the center part. Okay, so this is how your report looks like. Now I want to delete every sheet, so let's go ahead and delete the sheets. This is how it is going to look like. Okay, now you have the data here. Now one thing I also observed in that you have some spaces here. I think you might not be even aware of it. Well, I try to remove these spaces because I don't think so they have any reason to be here. So I'm going to remove all the leading and the trailing spaces, guys, using the trim function, right? So trim actually removes the leading and the trailing spaces, so we'll just copy it and the paste value it here. So now you have the new rate, which doesn't have any basically the space in the end. If I click here, you can see that there is no space. So now let's go ahead and see the code actually in the developer tab in the Visual Basic window. So I click on the module 1. So this is what exactly the code looks like, guys, right? Now we would like to focus on the one line, rest all is fine. If you see that, this is the line active workbook dot pivot cache. Pivot cache is basically, it's a source from where the pivot is gets created, the data gets stored. Now if you look at this active workbook dot pivot cache, it says create. Source type is by default it is Excel database because we are using the Excel. Source data is from the sheet 1 R3C1 R21C6. Now this looks a little complicated, so I can change it. This simply means that basically this A3 to F21, so we can define it. So we can define as RNG as range and set RNG equals to, you write the sheet name like this, sheets, and then you write the sheet 1 and dot range A3 to F21. Okay, now what is the benefit of this if you ask me? Well, we can directly use this RNG here to make it more presentable. So remove the double quotes, and this is how. So this is called the range from where the pivot is going to be created. Now where you want to create the pivot, so I want to create the pivot on the new sheet. So when the sheet gets added here, guys, we will give it a name. This is very useful. So we will write here active sheet node name has to be equals to test. We'll give it a name called test, right? So on the test sheet, so this is how I'm going to write, this is how we write test sheet, and then we will write it on the cell called 4th row and the 1 column, right? And I'm going to remove these double quotes from here. As simple as that. Table name, pivot table 1 you want to give, I'll give it Ajay, let's say my name, and that's how it is created, right? We don't need these lines, and we don't need these lines. So the pivot will work on in this way, and then let's have a look now. Let us first run this and let's see. So there we go. Sheet is going to be added, and the sheet name is going to be test. As you can see here, the test sheet is created. So we will have the pivot created here on the row number 4, and you see that on the row number 4 we have the pivot. Now unable to get the pivot property, well, I think I forgot to write here, because your pivot table is now Ajay, so you will have to remove the name of it, and here also actually you will need to write. So I'm going to remove this pivot table 1, we're going to keep it Ajay, and here also we can also keep it pivot table 1, that's fine. I'm just actually trying to tell you that how you can modify the code, and I believe everything is fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the code. I delete this, and we're going to run this quickly. There we go. So we have the pivot gets created. Now have a look, the pivot is created, right? So here the sum of rate 1 is going to be created, and unable to get this again. I think I have the same problem here. Active sheet add. All right, so this is actually should be removed. I removed the space using the trim, from after the rate 1, so this has to be like this. So yeah, this also needs to be removed, right? There we go, we got the sum of rate 1. So these are the things actually you need to take care of. Better you do all the things and then record the macro. Okay, so here we are going ahead, and let me just close this. Now from the A4, now we don't want from the A4, actually we want it from the A5, because I don't want to include the headers in copy and paste, guys. So we're gonna have this A5. Now this line, that if you have watched my VBA introduction series, or if you are a programmer, then you know that this is going to work as Control Shift right arrow. So we'll have the complete data copied, and this data is going to be copied. We will be back on the sheet 1, and then from the sheet 1, basically if I show you, let me yeah. So now here what will happen, you don't got to be on the L11, that's fine. We will remove this actually got recorded in our macro, so we don't need this line. Now from the L10,48,000 cell, this is going to move up, so I'll just delete these 2 lines. So first it goes to the the last cell, you can see here, and from there it is going to move up, right? So it moves up, and then it is going to paste the data. But this time what we want, actually we want 1 cell down, because this is the header, right? So instead of writing like this, we can also write like this, dot offset 1 row down, and the 0 column on the same column you got to select, right? So what will happen when I run this line, you see that my cursor would be on the L2. Okay, so let me just end this. and let's start the code again. And I also want to, I think there is some dot end. First of all, you write like this: Excel up, it moves in the upward direction, and when it moves to the upward direction, it has to go one cell down because you will have your header. So this is the line we need to write, and then we're gonna paste the value. So I just remove all these chunk of the lines from here. I'll keep it simple, that paste it as a value. Okay, and we don't need the, by the way, the formatting part. If you need it, you can keep the line, but I will not like to do that. Okay, now this is fine. Now I also want to tell you, once it is done, I would like to create one more macro here, compile data, call compile, and this is going to be created in the different macros. So I just cut it, and here I'm going to write that macro sub compile. There's no actually specific reason for that. It's just that when you bifurcate the macros, you know, when you segregate the things, then it looks nice. So here we're gonna paste the data. Okay, so let me delete the sheet, and let's now run the code. Okay, there we go. So the sheet is added in the background, as you can see. Sheet is renamed as test. The pivot is going to be created. There we go. Now we selected the entire data, including the grand totals. We come back to the sheet 1, and once we come back to the sheet 1, we will be compiling the data. So the macro will go in the compile, and then from here everything starts. Now the moment I run this line, it should be on the L2, and it has pasted the data. Again guys, you will have to use the same line to go to the last cell. So this time basically you won't go to the next line, so you don't need the offset. You simply write dot select. Okay, now if I execute this line, you will be on the last filled value of the L column, which is grand total, right? You can see that the cursor is on the grand total. So here I'm going to write condition that if active cell dot value, because we don't need the grand total, right? So I'm going to write a grand total. Please ensure that it's a case sensitive thing in VBA, so you should be perfect on that. So the active cell dot value has to be equals to, again, employee name, and from this active cell, the next column, which is offset, on the same row but on the column 1, we would like to write here a value called rate, and then you join it with some variable. So I'm gonna write it rate variable, let's say rate var. Okay, so this should be 1 in the beginning. It should be 2 actually, so I'm going to write here on the top of this, we will define it as a public rate 1, rate var as long, and we're going to start here that rate var, the moment it starts, it should be equals to 2, because rate 1 is already written on the top, and then once it executes, it should be incremented by 1, so that the next time we should have a rate 3 and 4 and so on, right? Now if you don't have any idea why I declared on the top, why not within the sub, then please go ahead and watch the video called life of a variable, because I want to control this from both the macros, because you know you're calling from one macro to the another. So if I'm going to create it as a local, it will be destroyed. I don't want to keep it. That's the first thing. Now similarly, one more thing guys, we need to do now, once the macro runs, we want to create one more pivot, right? Because I want to run pivot 5 times. So you got to do one thing, you got to here create a loop. So for run equals to 1 to 5, because I want to run it 5 times, as simple as that. And I'm going to declare as run as on the top as long. Okay, and so here in the call compile, after the call compile, you write next, so that the loop should run 5 times. Okay, and the 5 times when the loop is going to run, you know that you need the sum of rate 2 and 3 and 4. So this also needs to be removed. We need to put here some variable. So I'm going to put the JJ, join it with the JJ, and here as well. So we are going to delete this one. I want to make it dynamic and JJ. And once we did that, we would like to increment the JJ for the next loop. JJ equals to JJ plus 1, right? But when it starts, So I'm going to declare when it starts, it should start with the 1, right? It's a colon actually, not a semicolon, and so I will remove it. Yeah, that's how it is. Okay, so this is how the loop will work. Okay, now that's it. I think we are done with this, and all right, so let's go ahead and run this code, and I will delete this, and I will delete this as well. So ensure that your column should be first, it should be deleted. So when you define here, when you say that sheet 1, you are on the sheet 1 and dot select, so the range from your L2 to M, let's say 10,000. okay, because I don't think so you have this much of data, so it should be cleared first. Selection dot clear content. This is very important line, otherwise the data will keep on compiling every time you run. So from here L2 to M 10,000, we're gonna run this. So there we go guys, and now it should be removed. I hope, as you can see, the data is removed. Perfect. Okay, so we have defined the range here which we're gonna use. Now the loop is going to run for the first time. Now we are going to run it. The pivot is created, and so here JJ is 1, remember, so we will have here sum of rate as 1, and there we go. Perfect. So we got it, and now the JJ is going to be incremented by 2, and we will wait for the second loop, then we will use this JJ. So now in the A5 it goes, it selects or copies the data, and it comes back to the sheet, and variable not defined. All right, so which variable I have defined? I think I forgot to define the rate var. I defined it, but there is typo mistake, I believe. Rate var. Okay, so here is actually typo mistake. This should be like this. Okay, great. Block if without end if. Oh, I should have written the else also, because else is an important part of if. So if the condition is not true, then what should happen? So else and if, nothing should happen. There we go. So now it goes to the L2, as you know, the value will be pasted. Again, you will be on the last row using this code. You're on the grand total. It is a grand total. So we will have here employee name, and the next cell, which is this cell, it should have rate 2. Perfect. Now we have incremented the rate var also, because next time it should be 3. There we go. Enter. Next, it comes back to the original macro. Next means now the run is going to run for the second time, right? This second time. So again, we will have the sheet getting added. So now here we have a problem, guys. I'll show you what is the problem. Now when you're going to add the sheet will be added. Oh, just a second. Yeah, the sheet will be added, but the sheet cannot be renamed as test because it is already renamed as test. So here we will have a problem. So now what we need to do is basically we will delete this sheet if it exists. Okay, so when you add the sheet or before adding the sheet, you need to do one thing. You need to go to the sheet called test dot select. Okay, and if the active sheet dot name equals to test, then active sheet dot delete. Please delete it. Okay, now when the first time this macro is going to run, you know that if you're going to send this to somebody, you will send the data like this, everything going to be neat and clean. So that time this line will give you the error because sheet test is not there. So that is why in the beginning we will write on error resume next. Right? I hope you know this. If you don't have any idea about it, please go to the Excel VBA introduction series. On error resume next simply means that whenever there is some error, then just bypass that. Don't stop. Okay, so this we use when we know that there will be an error, right? And I'm not liking this name. I got to write this great pivot. Always give it a good name. Okay, so now I think we are done with this. And so when you have a one condition, you don't have to write else. This is again I'm telling you. You see, I have written everything in one line. You can write it because I just want that if this is the test name, then this should happen. I don't need anything else. So you don't have to write by pressing the enter, then you, because then in that case you will have to write else and if also. So in this way you can avoid it, right? So let's go ahead and do the things. Okay, so this is going to clear the data in the background. That's fine. You see that the data is cleared. Okay, so now we'll run this. Now sheet test is not there, but the error, you know, did not come. Why? Because you have said on error resume next. This is the trick, guys. And you know that right now you're on the active sheet and the active sheet name is also not test. So then after then nothing will happen. It will not go in this line active sheet dot delete. You see, that is what you know is the trick all about. The next time when I run this, you see this is going to be very useful. So the sheet is added now, and you know that now the pivot is going to be added. So let me quickly run this. You know that the data is going to be copied. Now we are on the compile mode. So now this goes to here, the data is pasted, grand total should be removed with the employee name. Everything looks good to me. And if next, now the turn for the next run is going to be 2 second loop we are running, guys. So once again I will select the test sheet. Now this time the test sheet is created because you are running the loop. Okay, second time. So second time it goes in the test, and now obviously active sheet name is test. Again I'm saying F is a case sensitive, so please write the correct name. It should not be the case that you are writing you are when you said that active sheet dot name equals to test, and here I mean test test in the small, and here you are writing it in the capital letters, then you will have a problem. Okay, so these are the things you need to take care of. So if the name is test, obviously it is, you see that it is going to delete. So delete this. So we don't need these pop-ups. Next time I will make ensure that this shouldn't come and the sheet should be deleted, because then you will have to delete it 5 times and it's very awkward. So the sheet is going to be added, and this sheet now will have the test name. Now if you look at this the table, you know, it's going to create the blank table. And if I go down and show you what I wanted to show, actually, now look at this, guys. What is the value in the variable? It's 2. When the first time it ran, what was the value? It was 1. So now here you will have a sum of rate 2, and the next time it will have the sum of rate 3, right? So the rest of the steps you already know this is going to happen. So call compile and just move it here. Yeah, now this will go to the last row from this L, and it is going to paste the values. The values are pasted. Again, this line takes to the last value. It is a grand total, so grand total should be replaced with employee name and the rate 3, right? Because this is also a variable which you are incrementing. Again, now I have incremented it, it is going to be 4. So in this way your this entire stuff is going to be, you know, keep running. So again you will be back on the sheet test, and you know that the sheet test is going to be selected, and we are going to delete it. So this is going to be deleted. Let me run this quickly. Delete, delete, and that's it, guys. Now if you have a look here, your data is compiled. Now you don't need the last row, so just delete it. You can record the macro also for that, or just last time when it runs, you know, come here and delete it. I will not do that part, it's very simple, but you see that the data is there. Now the formatting part, as I see that Santosh has given the yellow color, so you can also do that. Just record the macro how to give the color. So whenever you are actually going on the second loop, before you go to the second loop, just give them the color. That's very simple, right? So this is how, guys, you can do that. The data is compiled, right? Now I was about to tell you that couple of things. First of all, I don't need the display, so we can off it. Application dot display alert equals to false. This line makes ensure that you shouldn't be getting the display alerts again and again. Now there are two things. If you want to create here the button, that's fine, then you are done with this, right? But if you want to create this on the auto mode, for example, if I create a button here, insert, and I'm going to create the button here. That's it. Right click and go to the sign macro and This is the macro, right? So when I click on this, see what happens. Let me delete this first. Now this is how the data would look like, right? So if I click it, you see that this is going to happen. Did you get any prompt that the file is going to be deleted? You are not getting any prompt. So this is how application.displayAlert equals to false will work for you. Now if you want that, now anytime if you change any value, for example, I'm going to change this value as 2000. So any changes in this, if I run it, what will happen? Let's have a look. Are we going to get the new value? So I have to find the Santosh, and Santosh is for the rate 1, it says 2000 3017, and okay, I believe this Santosh is, that's the one, right? It should be 2000 actually. So it's not updating. Well, we can check on that. It is not possible. Okay, let us go ahead and run this again, guys. So let me run this again. There we go. And this is going to be deleted. Okay, perfect. And then the loop is going to run for the first time. We have the test, it is going to be deleted, the sheet is added. So we have here the pivot. I want to see what is it is going to generate. So it is going to generate what? It is going to generate the rate 1, and in the rate we still have 3071. Okay, that's very 3017 shouldn't be there, right? We should be able to see 2000 actually. Oh, I see it. This must be repeated somewhere in the table, I believe. Let's have a look. Santosh is here, and yeah, that's here. Yeah, that's why I was thinking. So pivot actually is summing up them, right? So this is going to be added with this, so we have 3017. Oh yeah, that means that was correct actually. All right, so that's fine. Let me just delete this now. So this is the first method. You can create the macro by clicking the button, or what else you can do if you want to create it whenever this workbook gets opened, then this should happen. So just right here, just go to this workbook and select this workbook, and in the workbook open, just write the call create pivot. I mean, whatever the macro name you have given here, create pivot. Right, that's the macro name. Let me copy this and paste it here again, just to avoid any spelling mistake. So whenever this workbook gets open, guys, everything will run by itself. Okay, so right now it's totally blank, as you can see. Let me close this. I want to save this. Click on the no, because we have to change the extension of this. Make it XLSM. I save the file, and now I'm going to simply run this. So yeah, that's the one, rate.xlsm. Click R, yeah, that's the one. So I'm opening it, double click on this, and this is getting opened. Now when it gets opened, if the macro works, you will have the data. You can see here we have got the data. Perfect. No need to click anywhere, right? It will automatically do everything for you. If you do some changes and close the file and again open it, those changes will reflect here. So that's it for now, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Any questions you have, let me know about it, and please subscribe to the channel and watch all those amazing videos. For the beginners, we have the videos. For the intermediate users, we have, and of course for the advanced, we definitely have it, right? Okay, thank you so much, guys, for watching. Bye bye.